And God said, "Let there be
The
light."
Lord says, "Let my people go."
I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me.
This is the Talkin' Bible podcast.
Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of Talkin' Bible with me, Rohan Bell, and with Adrian Gallagher. And we are talking today, following on from yesterday's conversation about persecution, we're just going to go a little bit deeper now and talk about how Jesus says the world hates us.
It does.
So, which is, you know, if you didn't listen to yesterday's conversation, it might actually be helpful because we've recorded these back to back, and no doubt the topics are the same and we'll kind of riff off each other. But today's scriptures is John 15, 18 to 27 and John 16, 1 to 4. So these are words that Jesus says at the famed Last Supper conversation that he has with his disciples, but following a similar kind of concept, isn't it, about persecution and what will happen in the world and how to respond.
Yeah. And it's a challenging thing because we like to be liked.
I certainly do.
And so to say people hate you is something that is not something that we can naturally deal with, I don't think.
Oh, I agree. Unless a person is purely narcissistic and doesn't care, most of us want to be liked. Yeah. And we don't want to be hated. No. I have met people who go, "Oh, the world hates me, so I'm standing up for truth, and the world hates me." They take it the other end of the spectrum, where I think Jesus would say, "Well, maybe you just show a bit of kindness. The world might not hate you as much as you do." You know,
you only think you think I do, but they just can't stand you.
They just can't stand you because you're such an obnoxious person, not because of your. I think what Jesus is talking about here is that there will be aspects of the world's values that are so antithesis. What's the word I'm after? The antithesis of the way we conduct our lives. That's what will be hateable. This isn't carte blanche permission to go and make the world hate you. No. In fact, Jesus would say quite the opposite.
Yes.
But this is more a recognition that you will face persecution and that there will be things about the way you conduct your life that those in the world won't like, will hate for.
Well, just in the first bit in Matthew 15, 18, 27, he said, "I took you out of the world, and because you're not part of the world anymore, that's why they hate you."
Yeah, good point.
You're not part of them anymore.
Yeah, that's right. I've drawn you out. I've chosen you, brought you from the kingdom of darkness into the kingdom of light.
Yep. And so, and elsewhere, we get onto it next week, I think. It's the darkness doesn't like the light, and so, if we are the light of the world, the darkness isn't going to like us, is it?
Yeah, we have to accept that, yeah. We shouldn't be disappointed about it. We just need to realise it's a reality. That doesn't mean that we shun people in darkness. We are the light. The light is supposed to shine in the darkness. Our job is to bring the light to the darkness, but be aware that some will not respond.
No, most, actually.
Most. But our job is to live in such a way that some will.
Some will.
Yep. Let your light shine before men that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think back there's just a couple of people who were in the world around me who I knew were Christians, but I never interacted with them at all.
Right.
But they would have made a little bit of difference in that path that I come along.
Okay. If you had have interacted with them, you think?
Oh, no, not just that knowing the existence of genuine Christians compared with the nominal Christian that what I was.
Gotcha.
It's just enough to sort of, it just stirs the water a little bit and breaks the surface tension, if that's a good analogy.
Get that? Yep.
And so that's often how we're going to be in people's lives. We're just going to be there and they're going to know.
For sure.
I remember years ago, a bloke at work, he actually came here. His brother-in-law comes here or something. Paul Myers, his name. But he said just seeing how the number of Christians at where we worked did have a strong influence on his eventually getting saved.
So there's an example of what we're talking about. That's great. That they might see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. That you can live your life in such godly ways among the Gentiles, Peter puts it, that it makes a difference to the world. That there will be some that see that as attractive. To some it is, as I said yesterday's episode, to some it is the aroma of life. To others it's the stench of death. Our job is to live that way and trust and believe that some will turn to life and find it because of the way because of the values we hold, because of the way we hold those values.
And we don't know who they are, so therefore we do it all the time.
We do it all the time. We throw our seed out there. That's our job.
Yep.
Yep. Cast the seed.
And it's interesting. Sometimes the ones we think will never get saved.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
the ones we would like to get saved don't.
Yep, that's right.
God knows what he's doing, but anyway,
He does.
we don't. I'm glad God is in charge and not ourselves, aren't we?
Oh, yes, absolutely, Adrian. I would have made a lot of decisions differently and they would have backfired on me pitifully. The things I'm so glad for the sovereign will of God, and trusting in him that he ultimately knows what's best.
It's interesting looking back in life and being cringy over some of the things.
I was chatting with Andrew Ridgway from our MacArthur location. He was sharing a devotion at our service on Sunday night, and he was talking about that 20 years ago. He and his wife worked in a call centre, I think he said, and he sent out a company email at Christmas time, which was basically a hellfire and brimstone. Or send out to the whole company. He was laughing about it. He said, I wouldn't do that now. And he said he got some positive responses, but obviously he got a lot of poison in the way he said it because it was very, very strong and not the right avenue for it. He said, I think it changed after that. The company changed their rules about who could send out company-wide emails. But he was saying how at the time he genuinely believed he was doing the right thing. He now knows that he wouldn't do it that way. But he was challenging us to make sure, hey, let's just make sure our heart is still for people,
I seen a couple of things company-wide. One was in the real old days where I actually had to print copies of it for everyone. I printed over 100 copies. This particular letter was about something. But a couple of times I'd sent out Easter messages at Easter time, and quite gently.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's probably the difference. He was saying he was quite. I think the word he used was zealous. Or his wife said, "Oh, you were quite zealous in those days." But zealous can be a good thing, but it can also tip over. But I think if you can say it gently, or you can say it, that's part of letting your light shine. Obviously, within the constraints of what's appropriate, but. Yeah, we shouldn't be hiding our light under a bushel, Jesus says. Let it shine.
Now, sometimes people need the harsher word.
Yeah.
So some people react negative to it, but others need to be told you are wrong.
And that can come from, as long as our motive is love for that person and whatever we think believe is going to bring about the positive response in the person. I think that's how I like to try to conduct myself in that way. But Jesus is saying here, look, the world's going to hate you. But they're going to hate you because they hate me and they hate my Father. And when he says, it's very easy to say the world and then we can distance ourselves. It becomes an us and them thing. I don't think that's what Jesus is advocating for here. It's not this looking down on the world. It's more about stating these are the world's values, and those who are living by these values will live this way. Especially the Gospel of John, because John, unlike the other Gospels, is very much amplifies the resistance between the kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of light. If you think about John's Gospel, all the strong discourses he has with the Pharisees and are we blind too and all that kind of stuff. I think John wanted to go out of his way to show how antagonistic the world and those who live in the world are to the ways of God.
Yeah, and we need to understand that about people, and that's how we were, and that's what God's taking us out of.
Yep.
And we're still going to have some of those little things in us to get rid of.
Not to become self-righteous, but to have God's love and remind ourselves that, hey, we were once those people too.
Yeah. I saw a question asked online by a Christian a couple of days ago. He's concerned about his father, because his father's probably in his 90s now. And when he was brought up, there was a very us and them thing between the races in America. And his father's never been able to get over that. And he's worried about that particular aspect in his father's life now. And so there's all these little things in us that we collected from being in the world.
Yep.
And some of them, we've got to get rid of them.
Yeah.
And there's some of them will take a long,
even
long
time.
time.
We'll take them with us.
Yeah. And some we won't get rid of.
And I think God in his infinite wisdom understands that. That doesn't mean that every racist person that lived through the 15 and 1600s who followed Jesus, and some of the stuff they would have done would have been incredibly inappropriate and would have believed to be the will of God, would have been incredibly inappropriate. Jesus said it in the persecution passage we looked at yesterday, there'll come a time when those who think they are persecuting you are doing a service to God.
Yeah.
We see that in the Apostle Paul, when he was Saul killing Stephen. But somehow, in God's way, in his wisdom, he can see through the fact that we all have these blind spots, and he still can love us through them.
And if society's doing them and we're taught those things, that's what we're taught.
Yeah, totally.
It's like any, people in Pentecostal churches believe certain things because they get taught them.
Because they taught them. Yep.
And often they say, suddenly they'll go elsewhere and say, oh, hang on, that's slightly different.
Yeah. And that can help us to enlarge our world. I was chatting with someone a few days ago about it, and we got onto the topic of slavery, I think it was, and I was just making the point that, I don't know that I would not have, as a God-fearing Christian, if I was 400 years ago, whether I would have believed that slavery was right or wrong. I don't. To me, it seems abhorrent. Yep. But how much of that is because my worldview, my Christian worldview, has taught me that? But it took William Wilberforce and the Clapham sect and a lot of people, a lot of hard work to convince the British Parliament that God wasn't in favour of slavery, because these were Christian people who believed it because they couldn't see otherwise. And so I was just using that example to say we're all a work in progress. We've got to keep staying faithful to God. And I'm grateful that God doesn't expect me to just have it all figured out. I might not even know until I go to be with the Lord what areas of the world and the world's values I'm still living that I don't realise are shaping me.
Yep. And because we all come from different paths into this local body.
That's right. We bring our different perspectives.
We've got all these different perspectives, and it's God has got a bit of a sense of humour.
Absolutely.
I guess, he just it's like bubble and squeak. Do you know
bubble and squeak. You mix it all together. Yep.
Mix it all together, but the end of bubble and squeak, I used to really enjoy that.
Oh, how good is it? How good is bubble and squeak? Absolutely. Yeah. So I think not being hatred towards the world is important. Understanding the world might have a hatred towards us, and we should hate sin.
Yep.
But the world in this context is really the systems that are against God. We shouldn't hate the people. We should love the people, but also be aware that there is a rebellion against God, and we're trying to break through that.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. They got expulsion from synagogues. He says. I hear it. It's in this passage. Those who, what does he say? Those who there'll come a time when those. It is in this passage. There'll come a time when those who kill you, I think they're doing a service to God. So there's definitely warnings there about what to expect from the Lord, from the world.
Again, we have to contextualise that to now. We're not all going to synagogues and getting kicked out of synagogues, but people will try, I think, destroy our religious places of worship and stuff like that. And stop us gathering together.
Silence our voice, our rights to. We might not be at a point where we're silenced from gathering yet, but silence our voice to be able to speak. Freedom of speech. And we know that's a current thing that's already going on.
Theoretically, one day someone may say, because on your podcast you said Jesus is the only way to heaven, we need to shut down the whole thing.
Yep, that's right. And each of us has to work out what values we will cling to in that regard. I mean, as I said today, I'm convinced of that. So we will claim that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through Him. So we'll hold to those things. And if persecution comes, that's the thing about putting stuff on the internet. It's out there forever now.
Yeah.
But hey, it's a tool that we'll use. So there will be some religious systems, there'll be some world values that are set up against people following Jesus. Like religious people will sometimes persecute. Those in power in religious settings will persecute Christians who live by God's values, because religion and power in religion can be corruption. Can lead to power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts, absolutely. So the challenge here, I think, is recognizing that in this passage, Jesus is saying the world's going to hate you, and bear in mind that it hated me first. So just being aware of that, just being prepared in advance so that if we're being rejected, doesn't mean we're outside of God's will.
Yeah. Christianity isn't a picnic.
No.
And part of what we've been saying for the last couple of days is we need our understanding right, and to understand the full depth and width of what it's really like.
Agreed.
It's it's nice to get saved in your first couple of weeks when you're literally bubbling.
That's right. But it doesn't take long before hardships come.
Yep.
Questions come, and that's all part of life. That's okay.
Yeah. I opened a bottle the other day and it was sparkling stuff. If you leave the top off, sparkling disappears.
Yep. Yep.
So you
It
need the
escapes.
bottle and the top
Yep.
to keep
Ooh, that's a good metaphor.
to keep what it's supposed to be like.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
we need to have the good things in Christ and that, but we
Yep.
also need to know the other side of what Christ said the world's going to see us.
Yep. Yep.
And keep
Keep them both together.
together so we've got a more holistic, deeper, more accurate understanding of what things are going to be like.
Absolutely. So, folks, persecution will come. Not everyone will like us. There will be hardship. There will be incredible blessings in the middle of those things that God will do that will blow your mind in the middle of it. But nonetheless, we must be prepared for the fact that not everyone is going to want to be our friend.
Nope.
Not everyone's going to like the way we conduct ourselves. And we need to be okay with that. Don't be people pleasers. Resist that temptation to make everyone like us. But also resist the temptation to become so arrogant that we don't care if people like us. We've got to find that balance in the middle which says I'm going to love people, all the while aware that some will not love me back. But I'm called to love them and show them God's love. And hopefully if they see God's love and see God's values and see the ways of God and why the kingdom values are better than the ways of darkness, some will turn. Some will be convinced by that. That's our job, I think.
And while that may seem to be hard at the time, it is just for a moment
That's right, just a twinkling comparison.
to the eternal life that awaits us.
Yep, that's right. All right. Oh, I think we've talked enough about persecution, haven't we?
We have. We spent a week on it.
We have. All right. Well, thanks for being with us this week, folks, and we'll talk to you on next week's episodes. See you then.